Ice Gauntlet has been one of my favorite weapons since back in the days of the beta, and I am still running it and loving it today. Well, in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my Nature's Wrath Ice Gauntlet build because this might be my favorite Ice Gauntlet build that I have had to date, and I am very, very excited to share it with all of you, and hopefully you can take what I have and what's working for me and make it work for yourself as well. As always, before we fully get into today's video, if this video helps you out or if you just like it, please drop it a like. It really helps me out a lot. And if you want to see more content like this, including more build videos, loot videos, stuff like that, definitely subscribe to the channel so you know when those videos go live. I also stream throughout the week over on Twitch as well as YouTube, so definitely stop by a stream, say hello, lurk, anything like that. We would love to have you. But let's get into today's video. Alright, as always, we are going to get started with the gear. So, taking a look at the armor, you're going to see kind of a trend that I have going, and it's actually pretty easy for you to get the armor yourself. If you run a lot of mutated dungeons, especially, it can be quite easy to acquire the gear that I have. So, we'll start with the armor here. What you're going to notice is that I'm actually wearing 3 pieces of the Admiral's gear. The Admiral's gear gives you ice harnessing as well as elemental aversion, and then you can roll it with materia for that third perk. So I ended up rolling 3 pieces with mutated materia. You can also run the Barnacles dungeon and have a chance for it to drop, and then from there you can level it up and change it if you need. But I just ended up using materia and got very lucky on the 3 pieces that I'm currently using. So with the first piece, Elemental Aversion, Ice Harnessing, Health. I do try to go for health. I like running health. I know it's kind of a perk that's maybe not the absolute best, but I think it's still pretty good to run, getting that extra HP, especially since we're running Rune Glass in all of our armor outside of the chest piece, since the Nature's Wrath does bounce around to different builds for me. I don't Rune Glass it, so what we're going to have is 4 pieces of Ice Harnessing as well as 4 pieces of Rune Glass. So that gives us a total of 16% increased ice damage on just our armor alone. So with our chest piece, like I said, Nature's Wrath, I still have health on it. Hasn't really changed since my previous builds. For the gloves, I do have a stack of refreshing. It rolled refreshing instead of health, which I just kept it. Having the extra cooldown is not that bad. For the pants, I ended up having to roll these because I went for the Ice Harnessing Physical Aversion Pylon Burst. I believe at the time I just didn't have the Chromatic Seals to do any Admiral gear, or I didn't have the materia for it. But honestly, these came out just fine. Having the Physical Aversion with all the muskets and stuff that we've been seeing, honestly has not been that bad. For the boots, same thing as the hat. We have the health alongside the elemental aversion and ice harnessing. So like I said, 16% increased damage output for our ice damage, which is all of our damage for the ice gauntlet on just our armor alone. With the weapons, this is the Ice Gauntlet that I'm running. So I have Refreshing Move and Unending Thaw. That's what I originally crafted and ended up getting Keen, which honestly is not that bad because then I get some of my mana back every time I'm landing a crit. And that Keen also is applying for like my pylon and stuff. So we are getting a little extra damage output just by landing more crits a little more consistently at least. And then obviously with the Unending Thaw, being that it's on the Ice Gauntlet itself, we do get a little bit of an increase on the damage output. So I do prefer having it on the Ice Gauntlet myself. The whole build, I wanted my Ice Storm to be really strong. So that was kind of the focus of this build, is not so much like I need my pylon to do the most damage or this. It is I want my Ice Storm to do as much damage as possible, because when I'm in an OPR and there's a big clump fight or something and I drop an Ice Storm, I want to just see big numbers or lots of small numbers. And really, I just want to be able to utilize that and force the enemy to decide, do I want to stay in this Ice Storm that's really hurting and just kind of stick it out, or do I need to jump out of it and get some heals? So I really like running it that way. And then we are running the Lifetaker Void Gauntlet because the pylon itself will actually apply the Disintegrate. So with the Disintegrate, if they don't destroy your pylon, and let's say it's a 1v1, they don't destroy your pylon, you get them stuck in an ice shower, your pylon's out. Your pylon's going to be essentially just adding those Disintegrate stacks. So then once you drop that Ice Storm and maybe like a heavy attack, and then get a couple of bursts from your pylon, you're going to do a whole bunch of burst damage really, really quickly, which is really nice with Ice Gauntlet to be able to do some burst without using the Ice Spike. You can definitely go with Ice Spike as well if you'd like. I just am a Pylon user. I really, really like it. For the jewelry, you can probably guess what my amulet's going to be. It is my Health Divine Thrust Protection. This is my go-to amulet. Many of you know this is what I wear for every single build pretty much. Unless I'm tanking, then I'll wear Ankh, because then for tanking for dungeons and stuff, I'm all set. The healer can heal me extra. I don't need to worry about getting all the extra heals from them. They can kind of focus on healing the DPS if they need. But this amulet honestly has worked the absolute best for myself. For the ring, this is the ring that I really wanted. At the time, I wasn't able to afford the inductor pricing and stuff, so I didn't get all the way up to 700. But honestly, the 690 for now is fine. Eventually, I will upgrade this, but for now, hardy, crippling, ice damage. I really, really like it. That ice damage just stacks on top of the harnessing and the rune glass, and then the crippling with the slow just lasts 31% longer. So our orb, our slowing tether, our ice abilities, any of those slows will last a little bit longer. For the earring, I'm actually changing it up. I'm not running Endless Thirst with this. You definitely could. The only issue I have with Endless Thirst is you don't get the empowerment. You do get the Fortify though, but then your potions are a little longer on cooldown. So with this specific earring, and this is a named one, Mammoth's Revenge, you can get it from Savage Divide. Has Refreshing Toast, Nimble, and Healthy Toast. The Healthy Toast is actually fantastic. I've ran this for quite a while on some other builds. I kind of put it down for a bit, but then decided to bring it back for this build, and kind of forgot how much I really like having just kind of an extra small health pot, essentially, by just utilizing that mana pot. With this build, though, I am burning through mana pots like crazy, so I'm constantly getting a little bit of health back every time I'm hitting that mana pot. So having the Healthy Toast on a mage build, I think is really, really nice, because you're kind of just getting extra heals without even realizing it. So it works really, really well for me, but you can obviously change it up, do Fortifying Toast or whatever you feel is kind of best for you. So that's what we're looking at for gear. For your heart rune, you can kind of run whatever. I'm still running Bio Bomb, because I do believe Bio Bomb is still one of the best heart runes out there, at least for OPRs and stuff, just because you apply, well, let's take a look here. You apply the disease, you apply the slowing, you apply the exhaust. So overall, very, very good heart rune to have, especially with an AoE build like what we're running here. So, like I said, though, that is the gear. It works really, really well for me. I do highly recommend minimum the harnessing. The rune glass is up to you. You are going to be a bit squishier with that rune glass. As many of you know, I typically will run 10% on everything for my resistance. Because of the rune glass, it does drop that down a bit. So I'm not going to be exactly at 10% on everything. So just keep that in mind when you are looking at rune glassing your armor. But next, let's go take a look over at the attributes as well as the mastery. All right, taking a look over at the attributes here, you can see it's a pretty straightforward layout, but with one little change from what I maybe have done in the past. So for the con, we are running the 150 or 152 with a 48 con food that bumps us up to 200. I do highly recommend the 200, especially if you are running rune glass in your armor, because you lose some of that resistance, and having the extra 10% armor is actually pretty nice. Everything else pretty much into int, other than we do run 25 focus specifically so I can get an extra 5% ability cooldown, and that is really, really nice because I'm trying to pump out as many ice storms as possible. But next, let's go take a look over at the mastery, because as we're talking about the cooldown reduction, there's actually a very specific way that I build my ice gauntlet to get even faster cooldown reduction, and you'll kind of get an idea of what I'm going for as we look at that. Okay, so looking over at the mastery here, let's just start with the Void Gauntlet, because this is pretty much the same as how I run with the musket. I don't really change it too much whenever I run Lifetaker. This is, I guess you could say, this is my Lifetaker build. But what we're going for is Glimpse of the Void. So we have Circle, or the Oblivion, we have the Tether, and the Orb of Decay. And those of you who have seen my musket video might know, as we are using the Nature's Wrath, the Tether empowerment as well as the Oblivion empowerment do stack with the Nature's Wrath, so you will get a damage increase. Now, what I will say for this build, and I'm not going to go too into each individual perk because I have gotten over this build multiple times in the past, but what I will say is when you are utilizing your Pylon or your Ice Storm for your build, what you want to make sure you are doing is dropping your Void abilities first, so your Tether and your Oblivion. you need to make sure that those are enabled first prior to you using your ice abilities if you want to get those empowerment stacks. So let's say you lay down your pylon first, and then you drop a circle, and then you hit your tether. You will not get the benefits of those specific empowerments because your pylon was technically on the field prior to that. Now, that is something that I need to tell myself when I'm running this, because if I get that tether, circle, pylon, and then an ice storm, it's a very specific order that I like to do that in. And once we get into the Ice Gauntlet build, you'll understand a little bit more. But I just want to make sure that I push people to like make sure you get that tether, that circle, all of that first before you switch to ice. So you kind of want to lead with the void and with the ice and get all those abilities out. And then I still do Glimpse of the Void. So with Glimpse of the Void, if you are not aware, at 4 stacks of Void Essence, once you land a heavy attack on an enemy, you can actually reset all of your cooldowns on your Void. So let's say you burn through every single cooldown, and then you hit a really big Orb of Decay, hit a bunch of people, and then land a heavy attack right after. There's a very good chance if you land that heavy and you hit enough people with that Orb of Decay, you are actually going to get all those cooldowns back immediately. So it's really, really nice once you get a handle on Glimpse of the Void and kind of understand how you can utilize it. It is extremely nice to have because, again, this build is revolved around cooldown reduction without doing like a bunch of stacks of refreshing and stuff, because there's a lot of cooldown reduction within the Void Gauntlet, including, refreshing precision, which gives you a 5% cooldown reduction on all abilities on critical hit with a max of 5 hits per attack. So that does include like your Orb of Decay and stuff. It should be giving it to you if you're landing a crit with that. So that's something to really think about. But that is the Void Gauntlet or Lifetaker build specifically that I like to run every time that I have Lifetaker equipped. All right. Next is the Ice Gauntlet build, because this is going to get more specific with my reasoning for what I am picking here. So obviously we do Ice Storm, Ice Shower, and Ice Pylon. With the left tree, we do the Cold Reach, so we have the damage increase of 15% when they're within 15 meters. Increase crit damage of Ice Gauntlet abilities by 10% while stam is full. So that is something where if you don't have to dodge a whole bunch and you can kind of sit still, or just not necessarily sit still, but just kind of strafe left and right or something, you do get a little extra damage output. Increase crit chance by 15% when hitting an enemy in a frosted area or when hitting an enemy with frostbite. So that is really, really nice to have an increased crit chance. Your pylon should be utilizing that as well, because if you drop an ice storm on someone, it should ideally do that. But also a frosted area is within the ice gauntlets. The ice gauntlet or the ice pylon. The ice pylon will create a frosted area around it, and that should also include that crit chance. And then the other one that I do highly recommend, and this is one that I would say is fairly essential if you're running Ice Storm especially, and that is the Heavy Freeze. So as you hit someone with a heavy attack, if they're in an Ice Storm or have Frostbite, then you will root them for 1 second. So really, really nice ability, great CC. You can stop someone in their tracks. It works really, really well. Over on the right tree, we do the Ice Shower all the way down, and then we also go Ice Pylon all the way down to the bottom, because at the bottom here, this actually doubles your Ice Pylon's health and extends the frosted area radius to 5 meters. So that extra crit chance that we're getting within the frosted area is now increased to a 5-meter radius, so a 10-meter diameter, and it is a really big area that you have the ability to move around in and just utilize. So from there, I'm going to show you the probably most important perk when it comes to the cooldown reduction, and that is going to be the Refreshing Frost. So as we were talking about the order in which I'm doing it, with this ability, you reduce the cooldown of all your Ice Gauntlet abilities by 20% when casting an ability in a frosted area. So let's go through the order, like I said, with the Void Gauntlet. We have the Tether, we have an Oblivion, and then I'm going to use a Pylon next. So the Pylon is typically going to come before the Ice Storm. Obviously, that is situational. Sometimes the Ice Storm has to come first, but typically, if I have the opportunity, the Pylon is going to drop first, because that's going to give me that 10-meter diameter frosted area to stand in. When I'm in that area, the next time I drop that Ice Storm, it will actually reduce the cooldown by 20%. And then when I use an Ice Shower after that Ice Storm, I am then getting the Storm back 20% quicker as well. So you can definitely, again, it's situational, so you don't have to do Ice Storm and then Ice Shower. I typically, though, am going to try to get that pylon out right away, so then I can utilize that frosted area for the cooldown reduction. So although a lot of people assume, well, pylons just to kind of get you some stat padding or whatever, I have two different main reasons that I like it for this build. One is obviously it is applying the Disintegrate, so if someone ignores it, they're getting Disintegrate stacks stacked on top of them. And two is that frosted area giving me that cooldown. Now, the other really cool thing about this perk is, let's say you see a friendly pylon with the frosted area. If you're in their frosted area, it should be giving you the 20% cooldown. That is something that's really, really nice with this, is even if your pylon gets destroyed or if you're on cooldown for it, hop into someone else's. Like if my pylon's on cooldown and I hop into someone else's frost area and then use an ability, oftentimes because the cooldown on Ice Pylon is only 8.7 seconds, with the refreshing and all that I have, then it just shortens that by 20%. So it's really, really nice, and I really highly recommend this specific perk if you're running Pylon specifically. You can utilize it if you're in like an ice storm, I believe, because it is creating that frosted area. But honestly, with the pylon, if you're standing within that pylon area, it works great. And then I try to utilize my ice shower to prevent people like the melees from getting to that pylon and trying to swing on it. If you can space out that shower correctly and make it so that melee essentially cannot get to the pylon, but they're in range of it, and especially the burst, they are going to take a bunch of damage, and they're going to have to decide, do I keep pushing through this ice shower or do I back off and try to leave? Either one can be kind of deadly for them. So it's a really, really fun combination that you can work with. And essentially you're just like trying to protect your pylon and keep it up because it's giving you that cooldown reduction. It's doing some damage. It's applying the debuffs. It's just all around really, really nice. So that is what we are looking at for the two weapon builds, though. I'm very, very happy with these. Definitely let me know, though, down in the comments if you change some of these perks, because there are a couple that you could probably mess around with and try different things. So definitely let me know if there's something that's working better for you, and I might just have to try it myself and see if it works for me and my playstyle as well. But next, I do have some footage of this build, so enjoy some gameplay of my Ice Gauntlet Lifetaker Nature's Wrath build. Ice Gauntlet is still one of my favorite weapons, and honestly, it is just so much fun. It has utility, it has damage, CC, it kind of has it all, and various different ways that you can both build it and run it. You could have the exact same build, different equip loads, and different uses, and it can still work fantastic for you. Healers, DPS, tanks, any of it, it can work. So I really hope that this build video helped you just get an idea of maybe if Ice Gauntlet is for you, and maybe you want to go the same route that I did and go with Nature's Wrath. But that is going to do it for today's video, so until next time, I'll see you guys later.